Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to the third in my occasional series of my favourite science fiction short stories. Today I'd like to talk about the story Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. First published in 1961 in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, this horrifying but absurd portrayal of a future dystopian society is, in my opinion, one of the best portrayals of such a society and still prompts heated debate today. It's set in a world where ludicrous handicaps are applied to healthy people in the name of equality. On a personal level, when I read this as a callow youth many years ago, I was struck by how fantastic a story this was. Surely no rational society could allow the events portrayed to happen. People would never tolerate such ludicrous impositions on their personal liberty. Many decades later, Vonnegut's tale no longer seems quite so ludicrous, but perhaps has an element of prophecy in it. Only time will tell. So Kurt Vonnegut was an American author who lived between 1922 and 2007. He was highly regarded in his lifetime, and his works certainly included science fiction themes, but not exclusively. He also wrote about history, social themes, did many autobiographical works, and was generally regarded as a leading light of the postmodern counterculture. His Second World War experiences, particularly in Dresden, was in Germany, informed one of his most famous works, which was the dark, satirical, science fiction infused anti-war novel Slaughterhouse-Five. His short story Harrison Bergeron, however, is set in the America of 2081. The titular character is a 14-year-old boy, son of George and Hazel Bergeron. In this brave new world, amendments to the American Constitution have dictated that all people are to be entirely equal. Nobody is allowed to be smarter, better looking, faster, or stronger, or indeed have any other advantage, including innate talents, over anyone else. So in order to achieve this, the citizens are forced to be handicapped. This means masking the beautiful, weighing down the athletic or graceful, attaching loud radios to distract the intelligent, putting blinkers on the sighted, and so on. All this enforced by the wonderfully named Handicapper General. Just love that name. Which is a bit of a nod to medieval and religious fanatics and witch hunting and so on and so on. Harrison has the misfortune to be born tall, athletic, and good looking. Well, he wasn't necessarily born tall, because that would have been a real pain. He certainly grew to be tall. The government forcibly removes him from his parents in order to mandate his handicaps, and his parents hardly notice due to their own handicaps that are physically imposed on them. Harrison, however, does not go quietly, and escapes from his internment camp and storms a television station, strips his handicaps, and briefly liberates the grotesquely weighed-down ballet dancers performing live. The Handicapper General, though, the wonderfully named Diana Moon Glampers, is forced to intervene to restore the status quo, and things reach a depressing conclusion. Although this story portrays a depressing dystopia, Vonnegut peppers it with absurd humour, highlighting the ludicrous nature of the ills thrust upon people in the name of fairness. And that's a reason this story is still debated regularly today and appropriated by groups of all political stripes. Now, Vonnegut himself was a postmodernist socialist, but was often highly critical of both liberal and conservative positions, traditional positions as too simplistic. And despite Vonnegut's avowed socialism, Harrison Bergeron appears on many levels to warn against many of the stated aims of his own beliefs, such as the absolute merits of equality of outcome. It raises many questions. Just what does equality mean? And who gets to define it? Is equality of outcome more important than personal liberty? Just how far should we go in enforcing equality, in exclamation marks? Is lowering of academic standards, for instance, in order to expand a certain stated notion of equality, actually a good thing for anyone in the long run? Is it someone's fault that they are taller than someone else? It's a very thought-provoking story, although there's no reason it can't be enjoyed as just a humorous and absurd possible future too, which is certainly how I enjoyed it as a kid in the first place. I wasn't thinking about these other political and social elements of it. And despite Vonnegut's standing as an intellectual writer, his writing style was not overly highbrow, so his stories were always accessible in terms of their writing. Now, it's certainly one of my all-time favourite science fiction short stories, and one of the most important and influential too, so I'd certainly recommend checking it out. There have been several televised attempts to portray this story, one starring Sean Astin in the 2000s, and more recently one entitled 2081, starring Armie Hammer, which actually wasn't a bad version, well worth a look. So, thank you for listening. I certainly hope you enjoyed this further foray into science fiction short stories. If you did, please like and subscribe and check out my other content, both science fiction oriented and otherwise. I appreciate your stopping by. Until next time, stay well and remember to look to the future.